The entertainment and media industry in Kenya is set to hit $2.9 billion in the year 2022. Well, opportunity for sure, but challenges as well. And so many players already within that industry as we're seeing. Today, I'm sitting down with one of them. Well, it is Mike Rabar. He's not just a lion in his own den, but across various dens as well. And in fact, if we talk about Homeboyz, the entertainment and event management group that he began with his brother over 20 years ago, there's so much to be talked about with that. Homeboyz has so much, whether we're talking about radio, TV, production, PR, and beyond. So let's take a look at his profile before we get right into the conversation. Mike Rabar is the founder and CEO of Homeboyz Entertainment since 1995. He is also the CEO of Publicis One EAS Africa since 2016. In 2012, he received a commendation for outstanding services rendered to the youth, sports, entertainment, and entrepreneurship sectors. Homeboyz did sign on a valuable and strategic global partnership with Publicis Group Worldwide, Europe's largest integrated marketing and communication agency, making Homeboyz Entertainment Limited a marketing, communications and advertising industry force in less than 2 years. He has started various businesses under the Homeboyz Entertainment Group, such as HBTV and Homeboyz Activate. Mike has steered the business to achieve phenomenal growth for more than 20 years. He became a key player in sports philanthropy as well by cultivating a top league rugby team in less than 5 years. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the Trading Bell.
Thank you.
It's been a journey, I'm sure, and you've been known to say that no matter how many branches Homeboyz has, the DNA is always music. So tell me a little bit about the journey so far with Homeboyz.
Thank you. So I think for us, why we keep using music as a foundation is because that's where the business emanated from. It started off by just accidentally playing at a party for a few people 20 years ago. And here we are now doing huge concerts and festivals. So the music has been a core and a thread that links everything we do together. And everything we've done in the past actually has been, or have continued to do, has been as a result of the music being the driver. So from just doing parties to buying the equipment, to produce big shows, to engaging artists, to building websites, to producing TV shows around the music, that's been the evolution of the business.
So I believe you used to DJ initially.
Oh, I still do.
You still do?
I still do. On a good day, I'll DJ, definitely. It's always in the blood. It'll never go away.
So who are your favorite artists?
I still am a hip-hop head, so I always go with the hip-hop acts any day.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's great. Something that I wanted to really ask you about is the radio space, because we've seen a lot of evolution coming about, especially these last few years. In fact, if we look at what the Communications Authority said earlier this year, there were about 173 active radio stations. When we look at the numbers, we're seeing that vernacular takes up about 24% of that. Also, majority is Kiswahili, but we've got English at about a third. So it's interesting to see the language bases it covers and the people radio reaches. Majority of Kenyans go to radio for news. How are you seeing this evolution of radio in Kenya right now, especially from a competitive standpoint?
I think for us, we have to be alive to the fact that environments change, and we have to obviously adapt to change and also adapt and try and keep up with the trends. Having been doing our business for more than 20 years, it's very easy to get slack and get left behind. But the fact that we've got a finger on the pulse of what's happening in the city and in the world, and constantly trying to engage and rebuild our brand, we understand that yes, communication is not just radio, but communication is becoming a different animal. So consumers have options of radio, blogs, podcasts, so there's many options of getting entertainment right now. And so for us, it's not just radio we look at, but it's looking at all the various elements that would now take away the eyes and the ears from what we're doing. So I think the fact that CA has expanded the spectrum and given more broadcasters a chance to share and entertain or communicate or sell news to citizens is a good thing. And now it's being really customized to small or really focused groups. So you speak in a certain way or a certain language, then you have a certain broadcast for you. And that's totally broken down the whole ecosystem that we had. So you have to be very, very unique in what you do now. So I think the new way of looking at it is identify a very clear audience and then home in on them with all the crosses. Don't even try and diversify rather. So for us, we realize that we are very strong in the youth space, and to maintain that edge, we have to keep doing things beyond just the broadcast. But how do you get sure you engage with the consumers in different ways? where they can touch, feel, and see what you're about. So it totally changed the landscape, and I think we're abreast of it. And like I said, we have to keep being innovative and just trying to find other ways of getting the attention of this very volatile consumer.
Absolutely. And you mentioned innovation. So speaking of that, you've actually joined the Ibuka program that the NSU offers, the Acceleration and Incubation program recently. And what informed that decision for you?
I think just based on the prior question you asked earlier, it's just that we realize that to do and to innovate needs a lot of resources, needs growth in a very unique way. That growth comes with a big demand on people, on capital, on new markets. So we just felt the Ibuka program will give us a chance to get in there and put out our feelers and get support from, one, the public who support what we do, and two, a wider audience that can maybe feel like they've got an interest in how exciting our product is, and they can invest their money into it. So I think the Ibuka program for us is key in terms of helping prepare us to go out there and get new partners on board.
Okay, and thus far, how has the journey been with Ibuka?
Ibuka has been amazing. Yeah, I wasn't paid to say that. Yeah. But definitely, I think
clarify.
It's been an interesting journey. Having come from a very informal background, where you start a business as a hobby.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're in big boardrooms and you're meeting international partners, and you have to learn how to talk the talk and walk the walk. So it just felt it had to be a very premeditated move to get into a space where you can get to learn how to think like a corporate business. And the only way to do that is try and look at listing, because listing is the epitome of it all. So if you can list, you can do business anywhere in the world. So I think that's what drove us to go into the Ibuka way, because once we comply and get listed on the bourse, means now we are ready for the world, not just Kenya.
Absolutely. And you talk a lot about youth, and of course you have a lot of mentorship. I've heard of the Y Club and a lot of other things that you've been associated with as well. When it comes to youth and artists especially, like you're saying you're bridging that artist sort of area with entrepreneurship, what would be the greatest advice that you could give artists out there right now who are trying to make that shift? They're trying to not just sell out, but also maintain their artistic integrity and yet be able to profitably, run a business?
Yeah, I think first thing I'd like to just bring to light is the market, especially in Kenya, is still very immature. All right, it's very difficult to live off artistry in this country, and that's a fact. So we can't lie to ourselves that we're in the States where you'll drop a single and tomorrow you're a billionaire. Yeah, it doesn't work like that here. So just being oblivious or being true to your environment is very important. You have to understand, this is who I am. This is my market, and this is how they would consume my product. Yeah. So there's things like piracy. They've got very poor buying patterns. They might not buy. There's all sorts of things you have to look into. So once you accept that, then you now look at it. Fine, this is how the market operates. What can I then do to make sure I can live off my art and off my trade per se? So I think we're lucky when we got off on a good foot. We're the pioneers in the DJing space then, which was really shunned down upon by a lot of the old people that time. But we realized that there's always a niche, and there's always someone who's willing to pay for something that is unique. So I tell anyone out there is try and find a way that you can, one, besides just producing the content, how else do you commercialize yourself? Do you go for product placements, endorsements? Do you perform? Do you write for the people? Do you write jingles for other companies? So it's a very tough space to be in, realistically. But obviously you have to persevere, and the market is changing. There's a lot more consumption of content in different ways that's happening right now. So there's obviously a bigger avenue for upcoming talent to get their stuff out there. But like I said, don't expect success overnight. Yeah, and you have to keep beating on those walls and make sure that your stuff stands out. You can't just be the same old that everyone's doing. So what's so special about you that's going to make you stand out? So I guess it's not a straight answer, but
it makes sense.
As
a whole, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And like you said, a lot of people try and start where they are with the audience base that they can reach. And I've seen a lot of people do that via online means. Start with a YouTube channel, and a lot of people would say that traditional media and the current new age online space sort of have this tussle. Do you agree with that, or do you think they work more in tandem?
I think I believe you need both. You can't one alone cannot sustain you. You need both traditional and the more modern ways of talking to your consumers. Like I said, again, look at the environment you're in. How many Kenyans are online consistently You know, can we afford to download music? Can we stream? What's the cost of data? So I think as much as it's I don't want to say the word overrated, but it is overrated, this whole online evolution, but there's still your basics, nuts and bolts you have to put on the ground. You've got to have presence in traditional media. That will help amplify your products online. So the two definitely work hand in hand.
Okay, and obviously given your wide range of experience, what do you say makes a good host?
Hosting what?
Radio
TV,
host. Yeah, radio host.
I think, again, most of the hosts you come across on our radio station, Homeboyz Radio, are by accident, never through auditions. So what we look at for many is just being you. Your wit, your personality is what makes who you are. Your trueness is what I think we'd look out for. So you don't have to go there and role play, but just be yourself. You know, so that's what we've actually been doing in the past. We've probably the one station that has picked up a lot of talent from the ground and molded it into something that is now commercially viable. So we pride ourselves in that as a radio station, but we know to look for talent. And it's really just about the willingness to work hard. You know, it's not easy. There's a lot of work, you know it. Yeah, it's a lot of research, a lot of commitment, a lot of sacrifice, but really being able to articulate yourself very well and straight from the heart, really.
Yeah. And you have a lot of youth, of course, within the company as well. Do you see that the unemployment rates that we have currently in Kenya, given that a lot of people say, okay, fine, unemployment is an issue, why don't you start your own business? That advice, a lot of youth have said, is not practical because, yes, you can't find a job where you're supposed to find capital, you know? So what would be your best advice for that youth out there who's saying, A, I don't have a job, B, I'm being told, be an entrepreneur, where do I go?
Okay, I think the other thing that I want to clarify here is not everyone's cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone is. Probably out of the 10 you'd meet, one will make it as an entrepreneur. So again, it's one of those overrated disciplines where you say go out there and start a business. It's not everyone who can do it. There's a certain type of character that takes and requires to make an entrepreneur. So I mean, the concept, if I do start a business, I've got to employ someone. So someone's got to be employable, right? So again, just pushing everyone down the entrepreneurial space is not the solution. Yeah, there are those who will cut it and hopefully create employment for those who want to be employed. But that said and done, doesn't mean you shouldn't try your luck. And you'll only find out if you tried, all right? Because I can't say you're an entrepreneur. I wouldn't be able to tell it by looking at you. But you have to try it out and see whether you have the resilience and the patience, because it does take time, you know, to wind it out. But yes, there is a lot of unemployment in the country. But I still believe that with the existing businesses, there's enough to create a bit more employment if maybe the landscape was a bit more level and was more facilitated. Then you'd find, like, I would easily employ another 1,000 people if your booker does come through, you know? And that's the whole idea, is grow your business to create wealth and employment for young people around you. So I think there is room for more entities to grow, those who are already in business to exist and expand, if they so wish, and then create more employment. And there's still space here for the young budding entrepreneur to come and try his luck. But like I said, we shouldn't overemphasize that point too much, because again, like I said, not everyone's cut out for it.
Absolutely. And even as we wrap up, give us a little glimpse of your future plans for Homeboyz. Anything we should look out for already that you can tell us about?
I think for us, we've decided we're a media and communications company, and our limit is not just in Kenya, but we're taking on the world. And we have enough expertise, we have enough content, we have enough skills to go out there and expand beyond just Kenya, Africa, but the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On that exciting note, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back with the market analysis on Trading Bell. That bell means it's time to take a look at the markets. Thank you for staying with us on the Trading Bell. Joining me now is Samuel Gishohi. He is the Head of Business Development at NCBA Investment Bank. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So as always, we're going to take a look at the numbers. And what do you think about the turnover so far in the week?
Still lackluster, really low. I think yesterday, for example, was terrible. I think it was 67 million or some, so thereabouts. Today we were doing around 316 million. So again, very low turnover. It points towards the apathy in the market at the moment. We've been in a very long bear market, so investors tend to get exhausted at some point, wondering when do they start seeing returns on the investments. We've also had very low foreign investor activity on the market. In fact, over the last week, they've been net sellers. So when foreigners are net sellers and the locals, there's low liquidity. And on the other hand, we're in the period of reporting for the fund managers. So those are off market right now. So it means the market is really, at the moment, very, very slow and very quiet. Hopefully, as October comes to an end, then we have the deadline, the 3-month deadline for the quarter reporting, the third quarter. So that means we should see more activity coming in, because then we start seeing any results that are yet to come in being done, and that sort of excites the market as the investors start to see information on how the companies are faring.
So essentially the bear run is still going strong. And we were also looking at some of the gainers and losers. You said none of them really stand out this time around.
Well, I wouldn't say the bear run is still going strong. That's a bit of a tough word for it.
Okay.
I think it's now getting to that level of it should start to recover anytime soon.
Okay.
Because we've been in it for a while. Bear runs don't last that long. We've been in it for over 13 months, which is normally the sort of length you see in a bear run. So I think we are towards the end of it. Regarding the gainers and the losers, that again shows you the sort of market we are in. You don't see any of the usual suspects, the Safaricoms, the KCBs, the equities. You don't see those on that board. So you see the Evereadys, the Crown Paints, which are really very low, small cap companies, none of which I think will appear on the NSE 20 on the index, the companies that are used to calculate the indices. So generally that just shows you it's a really illiquid market at the moment, because then most of the big players are off market.
Okay, but when it comes to movers, of course, Safaricom is still going strong. We've got some banks in there as well.
Absolutely, because when foreigners are selling, they tend to buy stocks which have good deal sizes. So they tend to buy the Safaricoms because they also have certain deal sizes that they look for, and only a few companies, the blue chips, tend to have those sort of deal sizes. So that you'll find it's the Safaricom, KCB, BAT, EABL. Those are the companies that will tend to be movers, because then they have the sort of volumes that they look for.
Okay, so a lot of insight on the numbers, thank you. But let's take a look at some of the more pressing stories that have been taking on during the week that we've seen pop up, including the one regarding the SGR Phase 2A. Of course, now from Naivasha and Nairobi, there is the active SGR. A lot of people are talking about the debt factor. Of course, 150 billion is what that cost, billion shillings. And we're just wondering, is it going nowhere at the end of the day?
Well, I think my concern would be what's in it for us, or what are we doing about it? Because the debt is already there. There's not much we can do about it. We've got to pay it. So I think focus should now shift from how much debt we are in to how do we pay this debt. Because if, for example, right now there is very low liquidity in the SME and in the private sector, really. So the private sector is squeezed, because now the development has happened, and you look at most of the GDP growth in the last 2, 3, 4 years has been government spending. Now it needs to shift to the private sector. So we need to start thinking, what are we going to move on that SGR back to Mombasa? Because if everything is coming in, then we become a net importer, which means more money is going out anyway. But what are we moving back? So I like the fact that we are now seeing, for example, this year, our exports to China increased by something like 60-something%, which is a good thing. It means we're exporting more. I've seen that we are talking with Japan. I saw the president had a discussion with the Japanese Prime Minister on how we can improve that. Because then if we can get those products like the avocado story and all those products that we can start to export, add value, do more in industries, then the SGR will make sense. If we don't start talking about that and keep whining about the debt, we are in trouble, because then we'll end up not being able to pay it.
So to shift our focus.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, but you mentioned something about SMEs as well, and a lot of these come from the informal sector. And this week we also had the Carry Tax Summit, and it was 2 days. They're talking all about the fact that, you know, they're trying to simplify the process of for taxpayers, and digitization taking over as well. But something that really had been a point of contention earlier on was the fact that the business community was decrying the fact that Carry needs to refund them, and that was quite a bit of money. And after, you know, a lot of pushing and pulling, they were supposed to refund about 14 billion at least to the business community. It was supposed to kickstart or at least create some movement in the economy. What do you think would the effect be if Carry were to, you know, in totality, keep on refunding?
Well, I think the bottom line is the processes, and that makes the summit very important. And with the line of thinking is actually key, because look at the Huduma Center thing, for example.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's very easy to get a replacement for your ID, because that has been digitized. You're looking for a birth certificate. It's very easy to apply. Your driving license expires. Actually, there's a time I got caught by a cop. My license was almost expiring. He told me, and all I did was go on the system, print it, and I was done. So I think the processes that KRA has, especially even for those refunds, they really need to be checked, because the more you have, you know, a process-heavy system, means that things go very slowly.
Yeah.
Your ability to collect the taxes is hampered. Your ability to to even educate the taxpayer is hampered. People don't know what they should be paying tax for. A lot of SMEs and, you know, people at that level of Wanjiko don't know. There are certain things they're being told they should be paying tax for they never knew about.
And so the percentages and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if these processes were streamlined, a digital system was brought in, the public was well educated, chances are then we would collect more. People, the refunds would go back into the system, more liquidity. SMEs are suffering, especially now that KRA has clamped down on tax evasion.
Yeah.
Then they need to refund the ones, you know, to whom it's due, so they have some money, you know, to do their business. So I think it's something that's in the right direction. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, on that informative note, we're going to take a look at Markets 101. Well, it's time to get into our question on the street, which comes from you. And we've got a text in from Katana from Western, and he's asking, can I trade as an individual in the derivatives markets? I'm going to let Samuel Gishori answer that for us.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Katana. Yes, the derivatives market is open to any investor, including individuals. And you just need to approach your broker and make sure it's one of the brokers that are trading on the derivatives market. Because you need to have already an account with the broker, and then there's an agreement that you sign so that you can participate in the derivatives market. And of course, you need to discuss with your broker the sort of margins or the amount of money you need to deposit as a margin for you to be able to trade in that market. Thank you for your question.
All right, well, on that note, we're going to take a look at the NSE historical facts. And that brings us to the end of this episode of The Trading Bell. Of course, I want to say thank you so much to Samuel Gishohi for joining us and for all your insights.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Yeah. And of course, we were earlier on talking to Mike Rabar of Homeboyz, and we have so many such discussions every Thursday night right here on The Trading Bell for you. So make sure that you tune in next time around and stay with us right here. My name is Maalika. Kazia. This is The Trading Bell.